Ladies and gentlemen, let's Gaming Silicon video. Let us discuss Thief on the PS4 versus the PC. This is also an article. You can click on the link below and it will take you, of course, straight to the article where there are super high quality versions of screenshots to download. They are all RAR'd up for you in a TIFF format, so they are really awesome to look at. In addition to that, there is a high quality movie to download which has a very high bitrate encoding, so you can check that out as well. But let's stick around, let's discuss stuff first. First of all, Thief on the PS4 is running 1080p 30 frames per second. We'll go more into that in a moment. I'm running the highest graphics settings on the PC. Now, Thief is using FXAA on the PS4, which of course is a low utilization in terms of GPU time, post-processing, anti-aliasing. It does, however, introduce some softness in those images, and it can be a bit of a problem. You'll notice this specifically on things such as cobbled textures. There's definitely further examples in the images in the article. The PC, meanwhile, uses SSAA. It's actually not that costly for the PC version, and a reasonable GPU could definitely run that fairly easily, unless you're going to be going at ludicrous resolutions such as 1440p or above. For the most part, both versions have pretty much similar graphical settings. For example, contact hardening shadows, you have POM, you have tessellation, and so on and so forth. I do, however, notice that the PS4 version is lacking the texture filtering of the PC. The PC is utilizing anisotropic filtering times 16, if that's the setting you choose, and as far as I can tell, the PS4 version is using trilinear filtering at best. I have put in a couple of examples of this in a video, but I'd recommend you check the article out for more examples, because I've also included some like high definition zooms in and stuff of textures, and you could definitely see that in some cases some of the textures on the PS4 are pretty much obliterated. You can barely tell what they are supposed to be. Meanwhile, on the PC they are razor sharp and it's all pretty damn hunky-dory. So graphically, there are several advantages to the PC, not least of all that it lacks some of the texture load times from the texture streaming of the PS4. That's not to say the PC is scot-free here. There is texture streaming issues. They're just not as bad. The PS4, pretty bad when it comes to texture streaming. Now, you can edit the INI on the PC, but I've not done so in this graphics comparison because I felt it was unfair, but you could do so to reduce the texture streaming issue even further. The PS4, however, does have some texture streaming problems, and if you go into an area too fast, or if you turn around, or blah blah blah, sometimes you can notice a texture pop in. Speaking of pop in, both versions do have LOD issues. I've not looked too far into the INI settings on the PC to see whether you can reduce that a little bit, but it's certainly noticeable in some instances with both characters and, say, shadows popping in and so forth. It's just as noticeable on the PS4, but it's actually made slightly worse because in conjunction with that you've also got the texture issues as well, as lack of filtering, for example, with anisotropic filtering and so forth. So definitely the PC does get the nod in terms of the graphics. Fortunately, it's only Unreal Engine 3, so despite the fact that they've changed a few things here and there, for example regarding the rendering of shadows, it's not exactly the most taxing of engines out there. That's not to say that the game looks ugly on either version, it doesn't. The PS4 does do a pretty good job. However, there are some issues further to this. Now, we're going to be doing another video in the next day or two, most likely you'll see it tomorrow, and, well, it depends of course when you watch this. But regarding the frame rate, the PS4 version is hitting around 30 frames a second, but it does sometimes drop. And when it does drop, you'll notice that the controls lag even further, and there is definitely some controller input latency there. That's not to say that the controls are bad. For the most part, they're fine after you've gotten used to them, but if you move between the two versions, it can feel kind of off for the first couple of minutes you're playing on the PlayStation 4. I would also point out that the PS4's controller, for the most part, does a pretty good job with, for example, switching weapons and switching to different items in the inventory using the touchpad. Not quite as good as, of course, the huge amount of keys you've got at a keyboard, but certainly not too bad, and it felt fairly natural. I'll speak quickly about loading times. Loading times of both versions were pretty snappy, particularly after you've initially loaded the game. There is a little bit of delay there on both versions, but once they've loaded, it's fairly okay. PC does load slightly faster. It's not that much faster. I'd guess at an average about 5 to 10 seconds per level. So it's not really here nor there, really. So what is my personal opinion? Personally, I would recommend to go with the PC version if you've got one that's capable of playing the game. You're going to get higher frame rates, better looking textures, less streaming, and you can certainly tweak it a lot more as well. Remember, the PC version will be getting Mantle support soon to improve performance on lower end CPUs as well as graphics cards from AMD. But even so, for example, you could be playing with anisotropic filtering times 16 and much more with an R9 270X at around 40 odd frames a second at 1080p at the very highest graphics settings. Anyway, it's just a little bit of food for thought, of course, for you guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.